Hello and welcome to another episode of Retro Gaming with Ricardo, and this episode's game of choice is Chase HQ. Chase HQ, or Chase Headquarters as it's known in Japan, is a 1988 arcade racing game released by Taisho. It's sometimes seen as a spiritual successor to Taisho's earlier Full Throttle. The player assumes the role of a police officer named Tony Gibson, member of the Chase Special Investigations Department, along with his partner, Raymond Brody. He must stop fleeing criminals in high-speed pursuits. The game was well received in the gaming industry, resulting in 3 arcade-based sequels being released: Special Criminal Investigation in 1989, Super Chase, Criminal Termination in 1992, and Chase HQ 2 in 2007. 2 spin-offs were also released, Crime City and Quiz HQ in 1990. The game was ported to many home computers by Ocean Software in 1989, including versions for the ZX Spectrum, Amstrad, Commodore, Amiga and the Atari ST, which is the version that you see today. Taisho produced versions for the family computer in 1989, Game Boy in 1990, the Master System as well in 1990, the TurboGrafx, the Game Gear, PlayStation 2, which was part of the Taisho Memories Volume 2. Now at the start of each level, the player is informed who they are pursuing, a great distance away. They must apprehend the criminal before their time limit expires. The criminal's car is constantly moving away, so if the player repeatedly crashes or drives too slowly, the criminal will escape. At some point during the game, the road splits and the correct turn must be taken, otherwise it will take longer to catch the criminal. When their vehicle is reached, the time limit is extended. The vehicle must be rammed a number of times until the criminal is forced to stop and then is arrested at the end of each level. The game includes 5 levels, as both the initial time limit to reach the criminal and time extension to ram the criminal are just 60, 65 or 70 seconds. The game is very short. A player who is able to finish the game on 1 credit will enjoy at most 10 minutes of gameplay. Now let's talk a little bit about controls on the Atari ST and indeed the Amiga. So I'm using the Kempson Competition Pro joystick here. Now the spacebar on the keyboard does invoke your nitro boost to give you that extra bit of zip. The fire button on the joystick allows you to change gear, high to low. Very important to know that, and you may have had to have googled it because it's not really self-explanatory and instructions aren't really given. I certainly lost the instructions on this game. All I have is the disc. At the beginning of each level, Nancy at Chase HQ, at the start of every level, calls on the radio. The frequency is always 144.x, various megahertz. It's actually the 2-meter band of amateur or ham radio frequencies. Although superficially similar in technology to Sega's Outrun, Chase HQ features significant technological advancements over that of the presentation of perspective, hills and track splits. Probably not seen that much in the Atari ST version. The villains though, however, are the following: Ralph, the Idaho slasher, and he's driving a white Lotus Esprit. There's Carlos, the New York armed robber, and he's in a yellow Lamborghini Countach. The Chicago Pushers, they're in a silver Porsche 959. An LA kidnapper in a blue Ferrari 288 GTO. And the Eastern Bloc spy in a red Porsche 928. And here we can see I've actually completed stage 1. He's nicked. Ocean released versions of the game for the ZX Spectrum, Amstrad, CPC, Commodore, as I mentioned before. Taisho ports, known as Taisho Chase HQ for the family computers, were also released, as I've also mentioned. Chase HQ 2 on the Genesis was released with some minor changes, including alternative player vehicles. In 1990, the game was included on the Wheels of Fire compilation, which also featured hard driving, power drift and turbo outrun. In June 1991, the game was released on the Power Up compilation, which also featured Altered Beast, Terrakin, Rainbow Island, and X Out. Super Chase HQ was released by Taisho in 1993, and that was on the Super NES. Unlike other home versions, it's played in the first-person perspective and is based upon Super Chase Criminal Termination rather than the original Chase HQ. Gameplay is modelled on the original with some aspects of SCI incorporated. There's also a Super Chase HQ for the Game Boy, which was released exclusively in North America 1994. The game was well received by critics. Upon release in arcades, computer and video games gave it a positive review, stating, "At last, a racing game with something more to do than just whizzing around the track, trying to beat a course time." They concluded that it is fast and challenging with great graphics and good clear sound effects, and is definitely a winner. Ace said that the Outrun theme keeps being expanded and presented in different ways, like Power Drift, but Chase HQ is by far the best. They also concluded that the game's driving and violence is a winning combination. Crash said it's a great game, an ultimate arcade version of Cops and Robbers movies. According to arcade history, it was arguably the most first sprite-scaled racer since Outrun to truly capture the gaming's public imagination. All big words from all the periodicals of the time. The home computer conversions were mostly well received by critics. The 16-bit Amiga and Atari ST versions received positive reviews, while the 8-bit ZX Spectrum and Amstrad CPC conversions received very high review scores and are generally recognised as the most accurate and most playable of the Ocean Software home computer releases. As you can see now, I've caught up to the guy in the yellow Countach, and I'm giving him a damn good ramming. Hey, not to worry, because no one is hurt in the making of this video game, because you just arrest him at the end. At Japan's 1989 Gamist Awards, the arcade version was nominated for Hit Game of the Year, for which it was voted 10th place. According to an Ocean Software advert in 1989, the arcade version was voted Arcade Game of the Year. Now you're given 3 credits or 3 retries at the end of each level. Pressing the fire button allows you to pick up where you left off, to have that last chance of getting there and getting that bad guy with your car. Now I found this a joy to play. It was a well-structured, playable game, and I can remember this from the arcades myself. The soundtrack, although a little bit muffled coming from the Atari, is pretty good. I suppose the graphics, given the speed, aren't so bad either, though I do find it's very easy to spin off on the track, and you've got to pay good attention to the road signs to give you an idea of what's going to happen up ahead. It's a shame, however, that the controllers of the day didn't have more functions attributed to them, therefore having the button to control the turbo boost on the joystick. I suppose we're all very spoiled considering the latest game consoles and their controller options that are available today. Reaching over to press the spacebar can cause you to spin off, or you to forget about the turbo boost entirely. I must admit, I didn't really know what the fire button did. I had to go and Google it myself to make sure what I was doing. Only then did I realise I was indeed changing gear, and couldn't realise why I was not catching up to those bad guys, or with like 1 second to spare. And as you can see, we've now captured the guy in the yellow Lamborghini Countach.
You're under arrest.
So our next adversary, and the last adversary of this video, will be the people in the German sports car, the people in the Porsche, the Chicago pushers. A more difficult track this time, and despite the retries that I've still accumulated, I didn't progress much further throughout the game, and more practice would be needed. As you can see, the graphics have changed, good use of red and yellows. And I'm trying to use the nitro boost to get as close to that bad guy as I possibly can. Though with narrower roads and more obstacles, spinning off. Thanks for watching this episode of Retro Gaming with Ricardo. This has been Chase HQ on the Atari ST. Please check my other videos for more games in the series.